Deb, can I show you something right here? If you go to the chooser, like on any page, there's a link. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's just open up a new tab. There's going to be a future spot where we're going to put up all of this training called Adilas.biz. And like we've got tons and tons of, there's over 100 YouTube videos on Adilas training right now. And I've got one of my other brothers. I come from a large family, but he's quite good at that kind of stuff. So he's actually going to be doing a bunch of videos. I'm just going to type in right up here, Adilas University. Adilasuniversity.biz. And right now what we have is there's, I've got the first 28. It's from another training scenario that we did in Utah. And so it just has tons and tons of different little pieces, and you could pop down through here and anything that you wanted to see, say you're like, hey, here's a micro review. What have we got going on? You just pop into it. It's a 21-minute video, kind of starts whatever we were training on. So we're going to be putting more and more training up and online, but I just wanted to kind of let you know that, like, and one of the things that we're going to be doing, this other brother, because he has some art background, we're going to actually be animating and showing flow and process and icons. And what we've done is we've spent 10 years building this engine. It's time to trick it out. Yeah. We haven't added any eye candy. And some people are like, oh man, it kind of looks old. We're like, dude, we just wanted to make it work. So but anyway, just to kind of give you an idea, it'll show the training, and you can pop right through YouTube and go right through that way. So
that's fantastic. Thank you.
And those are all searchable by topic. I mean, if you.
So what we're doing right now is we're blasting it out there. Cool, we got a new video, got a new video, got a new video. But as Adilas University matures, what we will end up doing is actually taking that and categorizing it. Hey, here's just sales, here's concepts, here's POs, here's expense receipts, recipes, like kind of bouncing around all the different little pieces of the puzzle. But right now, and literally we're just kind of like, okay, push it out there, push it out there, push it out there, and then we're going to come back and scoop it up and categorize the whole thing. That will be the future training ground. It's called Adilas University. A whole other project that no one even knows about is that this whole process, we've documented it for years and years and years. And what's happening is Shannon is actually working on previous notebooks and brainstorming pages and all this kind of stuff. And so we're going to actually put all of that online as well, so that if somebody wants to be like, okay, so how did they come up with this? It's our documentation. This is our business on how we track things. But it's basically what it's going to do. It's virtually going to set up Adilas as kind of a thought leader in some of these new pioneering, how can you mix and match and create everything all together. And so she's working on a project right now that's in the work. So there's tons of different projects that are kind of going and going to be happening.
So that's what you're doing right here is your video.
Yeah, we're recording this, so it captures his screen, is what the video captures, and the audio. So that we will use for videos later, and then other than that, I'm just sitting down.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and get started back again. Does anybody have any questions about the stuff that Steve was covering? That was awesome. That was basically, Steve, can you do a demo? And we covered tons of stuff. He did basic cards. He added stock units, clear out the serialized units. We did my cart favorite buttons, which are kind of like little custom buttons and interface stuff. We went to recipes. We went to advanced add to cart. We kind of a whole bunch of different little pieces of the puzzle. And so I thought that was actually very, very fun. Where would you guys like to go? Like, we can, here's what I was thinking, and I welcome to whatever things you thought. I thought, what if we created a brand new corporation, raw, out of the package, like no tweaks, nothing loaded, and let me show you how you can get rolling today. And then, as we're like, okay, you know what? I'm ready to take that next level. Let me show you how the next level can be added on. That's what I was kind of hoping to kind of do for some training. But what do you guys think? What would you like to do? Joe, would that be interesting to you?
Yes.
Okay. Roxanne, what?
I just have a question.
Please.
So, you know, my consultant has kind of stood in the same industry for quite a while now.
Okay.
And, you know, I haven't even had the chance to go out and get clients. I've just had, you know, referral, which has also kept me in the same industry. So by you building a corporation, is this just gonna be like generic, general, for anybody type thing?
This will end up being you guys' playgrounds. If you guys come here to the training, what I want you to do is I want you guys to have a spot where you can go and play, okay? We'll create the corporation, and then eventually we'll have to create users and assign those users to that corporation, and virtually this will end up being your own little playground. So if we give you assignments or if you want to play, you now have a spot you can go, you can tweak and change, and what does this do? Almost like an experimentation type area, but it's where you guys can play, and it doesn't hurt a thing.
Because I have a hard time sometimes when I'm trying to set up the corporations and get, you know, not necessarily with the tax rates and things like that, but just every little field, what do I put? Because I'm used to the medical marijuana industry.
Okay, sure.
Way different element than a car dealership, a restaurant, whatever. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is this going to be, like, I'm trying to actually sign up a car dealership.
Okay, okay.
So, you know, I'm not going to be putting the certain names in the certain fields. I mean, do you just pretty much leave it generic, like part versus like MMJ item? And you know what I'm saying?
Okay, correct. So what she's asking is there's a thing called corp-wide settings. And what it is you've heard Steve made the comment of smoke and mirrors, okay? I've got a little picture here, but just to kind of give you an idea, this is smoke and mirrors. So ideally what smoke and mirrors is it's a kind of a magician's trick. They'll distract you one spot here and then they'll do something over here. So what we do is, for instance, say in Adilas we have clients. In the medical marijuana industry they have patients. In a car dealership they have customers. But they virtually are kind of the same thing. So we're like, you know what? That seems like a really good spot to put a thing called a corp-wide setting so that we can let you name whatever you wanted, okay? Maybe imagine something like this. Say you had a teacher and a student. Well, it's basically the same relationship as a salesperson to a customer, okay? So what we do is we allow certain parts of the system to be changed. And there's probably close to 100 of them. What it does is it actually creates it so that we can go custom right out of the box. What let's do, I'm going to actually pull up a Word document. So before we even start, let's make a plan. Do you guys want to pick an industry? And whatever it is, either jointly or we could be like, we've got this and this and this and this, whatever we wanted to do, and then we'll kind of, this is virtually like nothing has been done in Adilas. Let's plan it out, and then let's go do it, okay? And then I can show you how to do it, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to create a corporation, okay? And the name of ours is going to be Denver Training. How about July Denver? July Denver Training, okay? Now, what are our customers? First off, what are our locations? Do we have locations, stores, clinics, job sites, departments? Like, what are our geographical regions, if you will? Or first off, I guess we have to choose a subject. Like most businesses would have a subject, okay? So for instance, Dan, he's done golf cars, and he's done trailer sites, and he's done stuff like this. The Burke & Cotters, they did trailers and toppers and used vehicles. And Shannon, she has her own little site that she just bills me. So it's a personal site. And she doesn't even worry about some of the corp-wide settings because it's like, I'm fine with whatever. But what would you guys like to do? And what we'll do is we'll kind of go through it and we'll create it. The first thing we need to do is create a virtual world, okay, which we're going to call a corporation. Let me show you one little graphic that we're working on. This is a flyer that's futuristic, but it might kind of give you an idea where I'm headed, okay? We're just going to go in here, and I think it's under my pictures and world building. This is kind of futuristic, but basically I wanted to just kind of describe, like, okay, where are we headed with this, and how does this going to actually help us out? Okay, can you guys all see that, at least relatively? Okay, at the universe level, you have the cloud, you have the internet, and Adilas, and there's all sorts of different worlds that are underneath this at the universe level, okay? So what we were talking about is, what do you want to call your world? What do you want to make it look like? Restaurant, deli, CRM, you know, like, you're starting to kind of almost define a little bit about what your world is, okay? Then the next thing I said is, what are your locations? Is it, etc.? Is it stores? Is it What are you trying to do? Or do you just have your own little single headquarters? Do you have virtual departments? You have to kind of figure some of these things out. And then as you get further in there, you start saying, okay, of the groups, are you going to be using customers and parts and invoices, or are you just using expenses? You're just doing online expense tracking. What are your groups? And then later on, you actually start adding those pieces at the individual level, which gets you data, and then we run the whole thing over time. Okay, it's kind of just a concept, if you will, but it's called virtual world building. Where we're at right now is kind of these top, upper echelon things of what we want to do it. So what I would do is I would say we're going to call it Denver training, and we're basically going to say we can leave it at location for right now, and then we can change it later on as we need to, and then we'll start adding these pieces. I want to show you how easy it is right out of the bat, like literally.
Can I ask you?
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry. So when we talk about location, it doesn't necessarily have to be location either, does it? It could be like, let's say there's one guy and he wants to run multiple companies. Would each of those companies be a different location, or would they be different? You understand what I'm saying?
So let's go back to the world level. At the world level, this deals with EIN, tax ID numbers, okay? So say I have a company and I do a DBA and a DBA and a DBA, but they're all under the same EIN. I would virtually, in my location, if I was doing that, I would have one world and virtually 3 different spots, DBA A, DBA C, and DBA Q, whatever it might be. Those would be my locations. And then as I expense things, I'm going to automatically be, okay, I'm just playing with this location. But in my mind, it would just almost be like a virtual, almost like a DBA, okay? However, say you have a bowling pro shop that has 30 some odd locations. You have some in Georgia and some in Alabama and some in here. Those are physical stores and shops. You're probably also going to have a headquarters. You're probably also going to have a warehouse. Those are physical areas that you want to track pieces of the puzzle, okay? So that's kind of at the upper echelon. You're kind of setting up the whole, how do I want to play? How do I want to play? Type thing, okay? Instead of going right into this, I can kind of see a couple blanks there. It's kind of like, whoa, what are we doing here? What's going on? Joe, did you have a question?
No, I was scratching my head.
Okay.
I was just thinking, there's a suggestion we could have consultation services, and locations could be all the towns on the Front Range or something.
Okay, great. What we can do is we can actually do tons of different things. That sounds like the first idea that's been presented. Are we cool with that?
So John presented an idea as well. He's just wondering about oil pipelines or a contract. So maybe you would just want to say.
Okay, great.
But you can consult for that as well. So it could be the same.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna jump back to Word. Okay, we're gonna just call it Denver Training, and basically the scope of what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be setting up a consulting service. Okay, so ideally, as soon as I say consulting services, we probably want to actually create some. Do we want to call them regions? Do we want to call them what do we want to call them? Areas.
Regions, yeah.
Areas? Why don't we call them areas, okay? So I'm going to go like this. Will end up being areas. Just for now, I just want to show you how you would kind of set this up. Okay, now the people who are, you're going to have users, but are you going to have salesperson, sales reps? Like, who is it that's actually going to be going out and touching your customers virtually? What should we call them?
Reps.
Okay, so we're going to go with reps. Okay, awesome. Now, the next thing, this is just kind of, what I'm doing right here is I'm just kind of planning it out, so then we're going to show you how we're going to actually do this. What do we want to call our customers? Are they customers? Are they clients? Are they buyers? What do we want to call our virtual customers? Okay, perfect.
Can we
Clients.
have reps and consultants?
What's that?
Yeah.
Can we have reps and consultants?
No
As far
problem.
as, because you'll have your people, kind of like essentially what all of us are. Some of us are out there going to be trying to sell. Some of us are actually consulting.
Perfect. I'm just going to shorten this font size down so it'll all stay on the same line. Okay, so we're going to kind of have reps and consultants. Basically what it is you have to kind of categorize it into a general thing. They technically could have their own terms and different permissions, but it's just kind of terminology, if you will. So basically what we're doing right here is we're kind of setting up the corp-wide settings, which basically means what does corp-wide settings mean?
The framework of corporation.
How do you spell terminology? T-E-R-M.
INOLOGY.
Terminology. Do I have one too many O's in there? Okay. Anyway, let's just say that we're kind of setting up the terminology right here. Now, when we sell our things, if we're doing a consulting service, let's talk parts. We're probably not going to be selling parts. What are we going to be selling? Services. Are you guys okay if we just call it services? Okay, perfect. So at this point, I kind of know where I'm going now, if that makes sense, alrighty? I know what's roughly going to happen. We're going to be returning to this document just so we kind of make sure that things happen and it happens the way that we want it to. But let's go ahead and do the process. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, if I return to this basic thing right here, at the universe level, the Denver training doesn't exist. So I need to go somehow to the universe level, which is kind of an admin tool, and I have to create this world. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to come down here to my internet site right here, and I'm going to actually log out because currently Steve was logged in as Adilas Demo, and we're under a restaurant here. Okay, so I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as me. Now, if you're following along, you're just going to have to watch for a second because I'm going to kind of be playing at the universe level just so you can kind of see it, and then we're going to start building that world. Okay. If you have any questions, go ahead and holler.
So if you're just beginning, then you already have a sign-in, so each consultant or each person gets their own sign-in, and then they create a world for somebody else, and then they give that world, I mean, they give you know what I'm trying to ask?
Perfect, perfect. So here's how it's going to kind of work, okay? And maybe what we'll do, just so that we can kind of keep documented so that you can kind of follow along. First, we need the world, right? Wow, neat. So in Adilas terminology, this is called a corporation, okay? Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we need to create users. Okay, these are people who actually interface with it, okay? And that's who gets your permissions and who does what, and they'll end up being your reps and your consultants and some of these different pieces, okay? And then you basically, in order to create this connection between these, you assign permissions. Hopefully that'll kind of tell you kind of where we're headed with this, okay? So what we're going to do is at the ultimate admin level, I'm currently actually inside of actually Adilas.biz as an admin user. And I'm going to open up a classic homepage, and I'm going to come down here. This is how I create a virtual world so that somebody can play with it. When I say a virtual world, it's literally a fenced-in area where they're able to name and choose and play, and all of their stuff just happens in their world, okay? So I'm going to say I'm going to go to the corporation homepage.
Brandon, what was the password?
This is me logging in.
Oh, that's you? No,
We will be having you guys log in just a second.
Okay.
And I'm going to click right here, add a new corporation, okay? And we want it to call ours July Denver Training. And because it's a play site, I put the little tildes up. Don't worry about that. Normally it would be Joe's Crab Shack or MH5 Consulting or whatever it might be, okay? So we're just going to go, we're just going to pop through some of these things really quick. Now, ideally you would know all of this information, but for the demo we're just going to kind of set it up.
Sometimes you may not when you set up.
Correct, correct. I just hit my back button. Sorry, my bad. I'm actually headed in there. I'll slow down. Okay, I was going to add a new corporation, and we're going to do, sometimes when you're typing on a little laptop, it kind of gets interesting. D-E-N, Training. I think we wanted to put July. Just kind of popping through it real quick. We'll put us in Colorado because we're in Denver, and we'll just pretend that this is the zip code. Now, ideally, you know this. It does cascade into different places of the site, okay? So if you pull your financials, guess what? This information pulls onto that. Okay, as you set up your locations, depending on your address, and as you invoice to something, that location pulls to those invoices. So it is very important. You don't want just random data, but just for training right now, we're going to just kind of set this up. So what I'm doing is I'm basically looking for asterisks. Anything that has an asterisk, I'm kind of just popping through here so that we have basic information.
Brandon?
Yes, go ahead.
Going back to the question about businesses or entities, I guess.
Correct.
So when you have like two separate corporations, even though they may be running out of the same place, or you can't have two at the same place. If a business owner has two different entities, corporations, whatever they are, then you would then need to have two separate accounts with Adilas, two separate corporate-wide settings for what you build your little world and build your stuff. Is that correct?
Correct, correct. So I'm going to return to this drawing for just a second, okay? So say in the universe you wanted two worlds, okay? No problem. We create independent entities. That's called Corporation A and Corporation B. Now, say you have certain people that actually need access to both. What we do is instead of the world being the biggest thing is actually the user, okay? The user is able to virtually, if we create the bridges, I can play in world A and world B, or I can just be assigned to world B and I have no clue what's going on over here. And it depends on their access level or who needs it. So Roxanne, ideally for you, if you're doing consulting for somebody, they have their own little entity and they're very happy, but if they want to, they can say, hey, we'd actually like to have you be assigned with this. They can create you your own login so that you're only locked into this, or you could be like, hey, I'd like to use my one login, and can you give me bridge access over to your world? Okay. And as soon as you do that, it does leave a footprint for security issues, and so we can track stuff. But basically, imagine something like this. Say we were on this little world right here, and I needed access to this little world. Well, at the universe level, we allow you to create a bridge so that Joe from here can come over here and play in this other corporation if he needs to. Okay. So that's way at the higher universe level. If you're just on the world level, you can create as many users as you want, but guess what? They're locked into this world unless you talk to the Adilas people at the universe level saying, hey, I need a bridge to this, this, and this, and this. And then we get written permission from the person to kind of make sure everything's, all the I's are dotted and T's crossed. Does that make kind of sense on that?
So is this something that we would actually need to maybe ask their CPA as far as where they, or does it matter?
Okay, so one of the first things you do is you kind of figure out what they kind of do, and then you're like, okay, how many EINs is this, okay? Well, it's actually one EIN, but we have 4 locations. Oh, sweet, sweet, sweet. So what that tells me, one world, 4 locations, okay? Does that make sense how I'm kind of breaking that up? But if they're like, we actually have about 4 corporations, and each one of those has a couple, this one has 2, all of a sudden I'm like, 4 worlds, 2 locations here, 1 location here, 17 locations here. Like each little, that's how you have to kind of think, if you will, okay? How many worlds? A world is basically equal to the corporation or the entity. And then you can have sub-entities underneath that, and that's your virtual locations and or areas or like that type of level.
And I'm sorry to ask these new questions, but I guess what I'm wanting to know is you have a guy who's got 4 EINs, let's say.
Okay, perfect.
But he wants to, his CPA wants it all tied back to him so that any given time he can look at where he's at with all 4 worlds or separately. Is that?
Okay, so what would end up happening is let's go back up to the top of this so we're kind of looking at the universe level. So say we have 4 different worlds, and let's just call this a world, this a world, this a world, and this a world, okay? So what we would do is the CPA would technically have a home planet. Okay, and I'm kind of talking theoretically, but this is what happens. We set him up on this home planet, but then we bridge him so he has access to all of these.
Okay.
And then later on, if we actually needed to do more custom work where we're like, and I actually need all of these things to return and report, no problem. That's basically kind of more at the universe level. That's how those particular worlds needed to work. Okay, but you might have 10 employees on this one, 30 employees on this one, another 20 on this one, and maybe a whole bunch on this one. They may not ever have the bridge, okay? Does that make sense how you can kind of distinguish between that? Okay, perfect. That was a wonderful question. And if you want, ask any question, and once we actually get our plan, we'll jump in here and we'll actually kind of create what we're trying to do so I can kind of show you, okay? Awesome. Any other questions before we proceed? Okay, returning to our goal, what we have is on the terminology, we're creating this little guy right here, the world, July Denver Training. So I'm going to switch back to my website, July Denver Training. I'm currently in the add mode, and I added pretend some fictitious information. This is the world name, okay, this particular world. Now right here, this is where you actually can control its look and feel. What's the logo? What's the identity of this world? How do we want to make it look and feel? We're just going to leave it default for right now. You can change any of this if you wanted to. There is a color picker. You can, literally, it's like, what's your air color, what's your positive color, what's your link color, what's your rollover color, and what it does is it cascades itself throughout the site, okay? So this is kind of like, if I go back to this little identity, this is orange, this is green and blue, this is yellow. Does that make sense? How it's virtually different worlds, okay? So we're just going to kind of scroll down here and say, create the corporation. Click. Okay, so at this point I have a success message. I've got a world created. I don't have any users assigned there. I want to bridge myself to it, okay? So I'm going to bridge myself to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to say, before I do that, I'm just going to say, hey, this particular one is going to be doing a few different pieces of the puzzle. We're probably not going to get into stock units right now, but it's basically assigning the world, how deep can you play, okay? And I'm just going to say assign that to the corporation.